Okay, so we built our reference map. Slicers. I can get back to this. So.
Sorry, before you go real quick, you delete that column of the kilowatt and the units there.
Yeah.
You delete the whole column, or did you just delete the column in the table?
I deleted the whole column because I actually had more information over here that I didn't want to shift. So I actually selected the whole column and deleted it. So in this instance, I checked. It's KVA. And that's all there is. So I'm like, you know what, I should be able to get away with this. And I did. I renamed it. I selected the whole column, and I did delete so that everything shifts over, like the entire Excel sheet shifts over. Whereas if I just did this, which you can, it's going to complain because you actually have other stuff over here, and you'll break your table because you see how the header is up here. If that shifts, these bottom things will shift down, and it doesn't allow you to do that. So tables respect your data. It doesn't let you break it. So you just have to select the whole column and delete. I press D for delete. That remember what I was saying about the letters? You see how these are underlined? So you can actually right-click, and if I hit I, which is for insert, I won't actually click on insert. I'll just hit I, and it's going to insert. And the same way I can do insert, I can right-click again, hit D for delete, delete. So slicers. This is where we get into some more magic. So in your table tools, insert slicer. Now, if you remembered, this shows you all the headers, right? So remember that naming convention, native use metric. One of the other benefits of that naming convention is it keeps your information together and also will group it alphabetically. So what we want to do is review the commodity code here. So we're going to click on this. You can actually select multiple if you want to go through a bunch. So we can do place code, meter code, that's fine. Let's just do place code and commodity code. So the fire station and the commodity. So now you're going to get two of these guys. These are slicers. Say hello to slicers. Slicers show you all the unique values that are inside a column. They allow you to filter the data dynamically by just clicking on them. So let's say I want fire hall 313, and I want to see natural gas. So rather than manually clicking the drop-down arrows on the table like this and picking, you have these slicers that show you all the content that's in there. And if you click the top right button here, it'll actually let you filter. And you don't have to filter in that order. I can just go this, and it'll show me what the items are in the place code, right? So I want to go, how many natural gas buildings do I have? How many have this value or this value? And so it filters accordingly. One of the things you can do, though, to clean this up is if you right-click and do slicer settings, go hide items with no data. This won't work in your data set because you guys actually have a clean data set. I put in some junk data in the one that I'm working on. It'll actually hide anything that doesn't apply to this filtering. Because what will happen is if you don't do that, it'll just list off everything and kind of gray it out in the background. And it can be a little confusing having that. So anyway, in part of the cleanup of the data, we need to see, we want some consistency. Now, who can tell me what's going on with this commodity code, where the issues are? Okay. So what do we have to do? Merge them, make them all the same? Okay, so let's do that. One of the things you can do, I see these two. You can actually click and drag, and it'll let you highlight multiple. So in this case, they all happen to be in sequence, so I can do this. Now it's filtered just the ones I want. Now if I wanted to target just the specific ones, I can just do hydro. And then I can click on it and start typing, elect. And now it's updated automatically. But the other thing you can do, you can see this typo. Anything that varies, even just a little bit, will come up as a different value. In this case, you can't see it. I put a space in there, and that is actually considered different data. Just something as simple as a space. And so there's different ways to clean it. In this instance, filtering it makes it nice and easy. So we filter what we want. If we select by clicking, now we have all the items in here. If you hit F2 while that's selected, and you guys can do this along with, if you want, let's say you want to rename this electricity. So highlight, well, you can do the whole thing or just attach them. Okay. Press F2, and we're going to rename this to electricity. Now, before you hit enter, you should leave it so it's blinking. We can even change the uppercase and lowercase. Okay. Now press Control Enter, and that fills down everything that you've got selected. Now, here's the part that's really cool. It's not just stuff in sequence. I can grab random chunks of stuff, do the exact same thing, put a different name, Control Enter, and it fills it. This one has saved me a lot of time, a lot of time. So in this instance, we want to select everything here because we want to have all the same name. We want it to be electricity. So I'm going to just do this. Something, I don't know if this has been fixed in 2016, but one of the things I notice is we are filtering data. We are filtering rows. It's hiding the stuff that's not relevant, like natural gas. And so potentially we could have stuff in rows in between that we don't want to override. And so the way that I've learned to do this is if you go into the Find and Select, there's another thing called Go to Special. And it lets you highlight specific things like formulas. Constants are just values. They're just fixed numbers. They're not formulas. And then one of the ones that I want you to pay attention to here is visible cells. So what this does is we'll only highlight the stuff you can see. If it's filtered, it will not select it. And so that is the way you guarantee that you're not overriding anything underneath potentially. In a proper table, it shouldn't do this, but I notice it can happen, so this is just a safe bet. So you go visible cells only, and you'll notice it'll, see this gap? It's showing that there was something in between here, and it's selecting above and below it, so it doesn't do that. And I'll hit F2 again. I just want this to say electricity, Control Enter, and there you go. See how our slicer updated? Now same thing, we'll go to our natural gas. I mean, I can just find the one that's bad and manually change it, but yeah, and this was just a space. Something as simple as a space can cause all kinds of errors. So by doing this, you're able to see what's in your database or in your columns and clean it up. So in this case, maybe I just want to call this gas. So I'm going to do the same thing. Actually, I'm going to select the column, go up here, go to Special, Visible Only, and we can use the shortcut Y. Hit Enter, so it selects those. Now I can actually just start typing if I want. It'll just take the first cell, Control Enter. And we do that to water. Yeah, so highlight the whole thing, the column, not while you're entering in something. So select this, go to Special. Sorry? When you click on the header, yeah. So if you select in the middle, if you click it once, it'll select the content. Click it twice, it'll select everything. So yeah, there's a little arrow. So if you click it once, twice, just keep clicking until you got it. Go to Special, Visible Cells Only. Okay, and then I'm just going to call this water lowercase. Updated. So that's a quick way you can actually replace things. Spot, you can obviously do find, Control F, do find and replace, and that'll work too if you want. Again, it depends on what you want to do. That's a great way to fix up spot things. Yeah, so we did the headers, outline, we did that. Typos, I showed you some typos, duplicates. Yeah, there's a lot. So, okay, so I'm just going to quickly read over some of the things that you clean up for. So if there's spacing or there's issue with spelling, which we saw with electricity, you want to get rid of that. If there's duplicates where you've got rows that seem to be doubled up, you can get rid of that also. So with tables and with data, you don't worry about having too many columns or too many rows because, well, you're not afraid anymore because you guys know what you're doing. So having too many columns isn't a problem. One of the things you can do to check for duplicates, you can do insert a new column. I just call this something like dupe check. You can call it whatever you like, but dupe check. If you hit equals, do count. And if you've used the count function, what it does is it allows you to look for a piece of information and then count how many times inside a column inside a column that information appears. And you can tell it to look for numbers or just look for blanks, different situations. In this instance, I'm going to do count ifs. So this actually lets you select multiple columns and check across multiple conditions. So you do count ifs. So the very first thing is you go, what is the first criteria I want to match? So I want to look inside this column. Again, because it's a table, it'll actually just put the name, nice and simple. And then the criteria, I just put comma, and I'm just going to say this. So I'm going to say, how many times does FS311-3 appear in this column? And something got wonky. Hold on. When I entered it, so F2 lets you edit if it deselected because you were arrowing around. And then, one second. So select your column first, then select the item. So what that'll do is it'll go through, and what this means is you have 36 of these inside this entire column. In this instance, we're not really worried about it, but if you wanted to detect duplicates, you can do that. And if you wanted to do, a check over here, you can do that as well. So you add a column. It's not a big deal. You can hide it by, if you want to keep it and update it, or you can delete it. And then the other thing you can do is you can set it a parameter, going back to conditional formatting, and go, if this is greater than 1, because we don't want duplicates, highlight it. Now in this instance, we have duplicates, so everything's going to be red. But if we had an example where we didn't want to have more than 2, it would flag it very easily. So you can filter that and go right to the root of the problem. So we're just going to delete that. So yeah, we want to get redundant columns. We remove those columns that we had extra with the kilowatts that we put in the titles. Getting rid of bad data. So those entries over here that were duplicate, that is like bad data. Detecting blanks and errors. I showed you some of the errors that we could do, that if they were empty, you can fill them. One of the things that's nice, so let's say I go through here, and I create a filter for this. So I just created some blanks. I'm highlighting them so you can see them. If I were to put a slicer on this, go native use metric, it's going to show me cubic m, kilowatt hours, and blank. So I can just select the blanks like that and immediately get to them and then fill them back in. And it'll do autofill too. I don't know if you guys have noticed that. If I start typing and it recognizes a pattern, it'll autofill. So now I got rid of my blanks and we're back to normal. Okay. So yeah, doing formulas, we've seen that. We've seen how we can do inline formulas, adding up things. If I wanted to see, now depending on if we're going to be importing more data into this. If you are, leave the headers and everything in the sequence you have it. Always add the information to the right, because what that means is that you'll keep the original formatting so you can paste the values in as they are. In this case, we deleted columns, and so that would create a problem. All our data would be shifted and there would be gaps in between, so we can't do that. But if you know that your data, you're going to be adding stuff to it, leave it as it is and add what I call helper columns at the end here. So in this instance, I want to know what the dollars per kilowatt are. So add a new column, I hit equals, I'm going to go cost divided by kilowatts. So now it's added all the way down. So in this format, this isn't really useful. What we can do is actually put a round on it, and this will round up the values that we have. So we can, because it's a cost, we only want it to have 2 values, 2 decimals. So now you got your numbers nice and round. If I copy and paste this to somewhere else as values, there's no decimals on here. If I didn't have the round on it, it would show that infinite decimals. So you can quickly round values. So yeah, use columns and like highlight them in a different color so you can easily see new columns that you added to do formulas. And
You change one of those cells in that new column to say to be dollars or the money type of number.
sure.
Will it just do the whole thing, or do you have to select it?
Yes. So, oh, you mean like if I format this one thing?
Yeah. Will it change the whole?
No, it won't. But I have to. If I select the whole thing and I do this, how are we doing for time?
Oh, good. I just want to work.
Okay. Okay. So yeah. So one of the things I did right there was a keyboard shortcut. I'll get your question in a moment. If you want to convert this so it just shows dollars, do Control Shift number 4, which if you see actually is the dollar sign. So you do Control Shift $. So now you just convert all your things to dollars. If you want to convert it to numbers, do Control Shift 1, and now the dollar signs are gone. Control Shift 1. So one is so Control Shift plus 1 is number. 2 I think is time. 3 is date. 4 is dollar sign. 5 is percentage. 7 is actually puts a box around things. So if I wanted to highlight a series of things, do Control Shift 7. Now I got a box. Sorry, your question.
How did you get the last column just added to take values from the other columns?
Okay, so let's do that again. So you start typing right in level with the header, with the new header you want to put in. It's going to auto size. You hit equals or plus, whatever you want to do. And then, yes, in the first cell. You can actually do it anywhere in here. It doesn't matter. And then we're going to arrow over to cost, hit divide, and then go to the native usage. Yes, it's just the content that you're doing the formula. You cannot put formulas in the headers, just so you know. There's no formulas in the headers. You could do it in a non-table, but in a table you can't do that because you can imagine if you're creating references, it would cause all kinds of problems if the names aren't actually fixed. Doesn't mean you can't change the names, which you can, and I'll show you about that in a sec. But you just can't put formulas in here. So one of the other things you can do to clean up your data, we know this is a formula, right? I'm going to quickly switch these to actual dates because it's easier for me to read. So Control Shift 3 makes it a number.
So you just highlighted both the top.
Yes, I just clicked and dragged, and you can do as much as you want. Control Shift 3 will convert it. And if you want to center it using, like center the text using keyboard shortcut, Alt. We know it's in the home key because we're trying to get to this guy right here. So I hit H, and then AC, and it centers it. So this column, we know that these numbers are based on these dates. So what we can do, there's 2 ways to approach this. Because we want to keep data integrity, I would actually recommend inserting a new column so we know what our original data look like, so we can do a comparison. So I'm going to copy it over, Control R, and then I'm going to put calc in the brackets. So it's the short term I use to know that I created this. And you can highlight it if you want to, make it stand out, so it's something different. And you can actually do, this is something that I find really handy. You can select this entire thing, do a conditional format, and say text that contains, say calc, right? Sorry, I got caps. And now it'll dynamically highlight new columns, which is really cool. So if I added another one over here, and I said dated, and then I put calc, automatically updates it. So you can quickly, without having to manually do this, add stuff. OK, so what we want to do is calculate this number. So we're just going to quickly grab the first one, grab the last one. All right. One of the other things I like to do is I will color formulas in blue text. So this is a quick way to be able to see which are text inputs and which are formulas, so you don't touch the formulas. It's just a good practice to get into. Now, if you want to go into what I call that matrix mode, so you can quickly see behind the scenes, there's a little tilde button. Do you guys know what the tilde button is? So if you look at your keyboard, the number 1, go left over. If you press Control tilde, this is what I call the matrix. You can see behind all of the numbers that Excel actually looks at. So you can see decimals, you can see formulas, and basically this is good. When we see this, this is good. The kind of stuff that we don't want to see, which will happen in formulas, is where someone will have gone this plus 25 or something. Now, that in this case, I stopped it from autofilling down, but this will happen. People will just do inline codes that breaks the pattern. And you don't want to do that because it breaks the integrity of your data. And that's one of those situations where if you had to detect an error or something that's inconsistent, and you forget that you did this formula, this number is no longer accurate, right? Because you broke the pattern. So you use this to quickly see where things have happened and where there's gaps, and to be able to detect where your formulas are. The other way to detect formulas, I can go automatic. In here, if I select the whole table, doing Control A, I can do formulas. Now it'll highlight all the stuff in here that's formulas. I go blue, and now you can quickly see where all my formulas are. And you could do the reverse for constants, which are values. OK, so going back to here, we create a formula. Now what we want to know is, do these match? Do these actually make sense? Are these numbers correct, or did somebody type something wrong? So we'll just do a check. And we just do a simple, if this is equal to this. And then we can go, OK, we just want true, but show me the falses. There it is. Now why is this false? Anybody?
Because it's blank in the one.
That's right. So if I typed in 32, it's fixed. So quickly, you can, again, verify that your data is matching up. Your formulas are making sense. So I've confirmed these are all good. So I can delete this column if I want. And then rather than replacing, deleting this column and then replacing it, because now we've broken the names, I can actually go in here, highlight the formula, copy, Control-C, go in here, press Control-V. And then I can paste down. And now I've just replaced all my data. Now, you've got to do that if you verify it. The reason you want to make this a formula is that when you add new data, and for example, if it didn't have those days in there, this would automatically calculate. So that's one way to consistently check. Any questions?
Did you paste down again, sorry, down the column?
If you just press Enter, it'll.
Oh yeah, Control Enter.
Yeah, so if I hit +1 or 4, it'll automatically do it. But if it's not doing that, it might show. Do you see this little box in the corner here? There's another icon that's like blue and with black on it. And if you click on it, it'll say Override Variables. I don't know if you guys have seen that one. If you want the formula to paste into everything, you have to click OK. You have to go, yes, override, and it will override everything. Because they know sometimes people want to do single entries. OK, so we've seen how we can check and verify what's going on. You don't delete data. Like I said, if there's information in here you don't need to see, you can just hide it. This column, personally, I don't think needs to be here, but that's based on how I would use the data. If we want to generate this and not manually type it in, we can do that too. Anybody have an idea how to do that? If I wanted to generate this code? If I wanted to recreate a formula to generate this code, do you know how to do it?
With the slicers, I suppose, so you click on F311 and then electricity.
Well, the slicers are filtering your data. They're not actually control. They're not actually doing anything to it. Yeah? This? And then? But where's the E? So that you got part one right. So where's this E coming from? This is based on the utility. So what we can do is we can do ampersand, and what this does is it lets you combine. You can also use concatenate. I don't know if you guys have heard that. What it does is it lets you put strings of text or numbers together. So, for example, if I want this to say, and let's say electricity. If this is what I wanted to say, okay? Ignore all this. This is that information is actually coming from this column and this column. So the way to do it, if I just do this and then I put like a comma, it's not going to work. It gives an error. But if I do if I do this and I put an ampersand, it actually lets me combine the two of them. So now I've got exactly what I have above, but there's no space. So if I want to put a space, I have to go in front of that ampersand, quote, space, quote, ampersand. So whenever you're connecting two cells, you always have to have an ampersand. The quotes are basically text, but when you have two quotes together, it basically acts like a reference, if that makes sense. So if I press enter, now I've got a space in between there, if you guys can see that. Right? Now if I wanted to put a dash, I can actually go in here and just put space, dash, space, right? So what it's going to do is it's going to put whatever's from the first part of the quote to here. That's what it's going to put in. So it's going to put this plus this, right? And you can have that do numbers. You can have it do a bunch of stuff. If you want to change the order, you select the first one first, put our space, then the ampersand to combine the next one. Now we reversed it. If we want to create this cell, there's a formula called left and right, which lets you take a piece of whatever you have and navigate over. So if I just want the first three letters, I'm saying left, this cell, take this, and now I've just written the first three letters. In this instance, I know that, no, I don't need three, I actually just need one.
How does it know electricity though if it's taken from the left?
First, you select what you're referencing. So if I did this and I did it over here, if I did a left 1, what value am I going to get out of this? Okay. And if I did right 2, what would I get out? 1. Yes. So if I want to combine these two, left is the function. You can there's left. There's I put it in here. So what that means, left means start from the left, okay? Another shortcut. So you start typing left. You see it pops up? Press tab. I haven't even finished writing it, but I know I want you can use the arrows to select. Press tab, and it puts the bracket. Now, if you arrow over, you're saying start from the left of this value. And then the next thing you can see, it says text and it says number of characters. Now, how many characters do you want to go over from the left? If I want the first 2, so it says FS, I just put 2. And I got FS. Now, if I were to do right, what am I going to see? And if I wanted to see the 311, yeah. So now that you know this, anyone going to tell me how I can recreate this cell?
And the first one and space, or I guess you do.
And what?
Quote dash. Quote dash. Quote.
Yeah. Okay. F2. When you're typing, if you want to be able to arrow over, it's not going to let you actually use the cell. So press F2 again. F2, sorry. And it'll let me arrow again. Okay. Oh. So F2 again to edit. So where am I putting the left? Okay. And then? 1 or 2? Well done, guys. All right. So there you go. So now I've just recreated this dynamically.
So brackets are just location holders and your parentheses are the formulas, right?
Brackets are the beginning and end of your function. So every function or formula you have So if you're using an if, or you're using a count if, or you're using a left, or whatever formula you're using, brackets are the beginning of that formula. So if I was typing, another one like mid, which is another formula, I select this. It's the same concept as left and right, but this one actually lets you grab from the middle anywhere inside this cell, which is also really, really cool. So I can say, pick my text. What's my start number? Let's say I don't want to see the FS. So I'll say start number will be 3, because I'm going to skip over the first 2 characters, and I want to start on the third one. And then the number of characters, I'm going to just say 5. And what do you think that'll spit out?
311-E.
That's right. There you go. So
Right, but at the top of the formula bar, it says equals midi, then it opens a bracket.
yeah, hold on a second. One of the things I don't like about this, and we will fix that right now, actually. These headers, they have, I'm just pasting values and transposing. I might have screwed up the order because of that column I have in there. But yeah, just if you hit Alt when you're typing in a name, it'll actually put another line. So do you see how this title, do you see it says meter code instead of this? Like all in one line? If I hit enter, it's not going to actually, no, you have to put Alt enter, and it wraps it down. So in this instance, it's not useful to have this. Anyway, so yeah, so you can generate these codes. So that's why I said you could actually, you don't even need this really, you can delete it. And also, the reason you can delete it is because you have that information, electricity, in another column. Now, if in this instance you didn't have this electricity column, but you know you have the E, one of the things you can do is you can insert another column, and you can extract just that E, right? Righty. And then just do the 1, right? And then if you wanted, you could, once you've got these all down, you could select, go Control-C, Control-V, and just paste values. And then we could do the same thing. We can go in here. Obviously, we had some issues there. So you got to check that stuff. What happened? OK, well, there you go. You got to watch for these. So in this instance, I have a feeling what's happened is there's actually multiple accounts. And we can see that. Do you see how there's 255, and then it goes to 455? And you'll notice at the rate of this crossover. So we'd have to actually, we could fix that with another formula, but I need to actually keep moving. So anyway, you get the idea. You can actually shape and clean up your data doing that. One other one I'm going to show you quickly that's really helpful for shaping text. So trim will actually let you remove spaces. So if I had spaces in here, and again, you can't see them, but they're there. So right now, you can see that space. Or to go equals trim, grab this, and then do Control-C, Control-V, because right now it's a formula, so you won't, if you edit that, now if I look at it, there's no spaces. One of the other things you can do too is if you want this to be all uppercase, you do upper. If you want it to be lowercase, you do lower. So now there's no capitals. And if you want it to be proper case, as in the first letter is capital, but then the rest is lowercase, you do proper. In this case, here, I'll show you. See, I fixed it? OK. Any questions?
So just a quick question. How did you get it to fill that whole row so fast?
It's tables. It's tables. I just inserted, and then I go equals, and then I was doing, let's say, proper. Tab. Arrow it over. Just enter. Autofill.
And sorry, to scroll over in your equation, did you press F2 there?
So if I want to edit, yeah, F2, and then you can use, if you hold Control, it'll let you navigate faster to the first line of.
So many good like shortcuts.
Yeah, shortcuts are where it's at.
Hours of my life wasted clicking and.
Yeah, no, I spend more time with the keyboard than I do the mouse. Like, the more time you spend with the keyboard than the mouse, it means you're working more in theory. Okay, again, because I gotta watch for time. So, custom formatting. I'm just gonna show you another one of this. This is just I'm gonna quickly fix this. Okay, so two things. With the date, have you guys ever used another keyboard shortcut? If I want to format something, but I don't want to be using this drop-down and all that stuff, you can actually press Control-1. Control-1 is going to revolutionize your world. It lets you pick all kinds of custom different formatting, and you can even write your own formatting. So do you see this date function? If I wanted to, and you can look this up. Let's say I want to do year, and then I want to do like a funky space line thing, a pipe, and then I wanted to see June, and then I wanted to see the day, or I wanted to actually see the day. You can do that. And then if I just apply it to one, I'm like, oh no, it's only on one. Well, what you can do, Control-C, Control-Shift. Well, just stay with me for a second. Control-Shift to select everything. I'll show you what a pipe is in a sec. So what we're doing is we're selecting Control-C, and then we want to highlight all the stuff in here because we want to apply the formatting. Use our paste special. Anybody have a guess at what I'm going to do if I want to copy this format? That's right. What letter am I going to press? T. Now all of these have been updated to that format. Now the thing with doing this is now it's locked in. But so I mean, if you want to do that temporarily, you can do that. But there's another way you can do it, which is really cool, called text. You select what text you want to edit the format in, and then we do the exact same thing. So when you press Control-1, it showed you a list of different formatting you can do. So somebody give me a format they want. How do you want your date to look? Let's show the year first, and then we'll do month and then day. Okay? So the first part of it is text, and then you select what text you want to shape, and then the next part is you want to put it in this format. Now you've built it out. It doesn't affect the original date stuff, but you have this formatted in a way that you like. You can also do this with numbers, which is really cool. So let's say this number. I'm just gonna make another one beside it. Let's just do this here, and go equals text this, and then what I want to do is I want to just show the numbers, no decimals. Quote, number, comma, because we want to show commas for thousands. If you don't want to show commas for thousands, then don't put a comma. So we could actually just do number if you want, and then bracket. So now, I'll get rid of you'll see that the numbers here don't have commas. If I want to put a comma, I just do comma, and now I've got that. If I want a dollar sign, so you can custom format all your stuff, but you keep the original data as it is using these helper columns. So you can keep your original data on the left-hand side, and then on the right-hand side do all your formatting, all your controls, all your formulas. So you keep everything clean, and then if you add in new data, you just drop it in. Question?
You're doing format text for a date like you were just doing.
Yeah, like this one.
Say you just like end date, right?
Sorry?
Say you want to change the end date to spell out the whole month.
This? Yeah.
See where it,
Spell out the whole month? Yeah, so add,
oh, I just keep adding it.
yeah, so the first two I think is the number. So if I do that, it's number. And you can look these up. If you do 2, it'll be 3-letter of the month. And then if you do 4, it's actually full spelling.
And then I'm assuming the same applies to Y and D.
Yes. Year, I don't think year will have any variations, but day will. Day will have 3 letters. Yes, 2Y will work, but not like 5 or 6Y. So just with that text thing alone, you can dynamically format your stuff without changing your original data. Yeah, so that's very handy. So the next quick thing, so as I was saying before, this is good for sorting, but isn't actually a date. when it comes to pivot tables, you lose a lot of functionality if you don't have the date. So what we're going to do is we're going to convert this into a date. Does anybody know the function for creating a date? Take a guess. Really simple. Date. All right. So how would I get the year out of the text string on the left? You guys know how to do this now.
Why?
No.
Left.
I want to just extract the year out of this.
So the left function,
Yep.
4.
Yep. Okay. So even though this isn't finished, this is the date, this is the year. So I'm just putting in ones, but you'll see that that doesn't look like anything. But if I convert that to a date, we got 2015. Not very useful right now, but we have that. If I were to get rid of this date function for a second, we should see 2015, right? Because that's what the formula you just did. Now, if I want it to give me the month, how would I get the month? Right? 2. Now I got the month. So with that, I've been able to just separate the data. I'm extracting the numbers I need. So in order to make a date, a full date, what do you need? Year, month, day. So we're going to build out. Now you can one of the things you can do to make your life easier when you're building out formulas, because it can be really confusing trying to do everything at once, is you can actually take your pieces and split them up. So first one, left, this one, 4. There's our year. There's our month. And in this case, label your stuff. Our day, we don't care about the day because we're really just trying to get the month out. So we can just put the number 1. So make another formula. We're going to make a formula that actually makes a date. So we can just do date. Now this is my year. This is my month. And then I'm just going to put 1. And then if I highlight this, what's the keyboard shortcut to convert this to format a date? Control-Shift-3. So now, does that match? 15/07, July, 06, June, May. So there you go. Now all of a sudden this is usable data. These are numbers now that mean something. So you have these extra columns. If you want to condense it to 1, now we just grab this and we just do we just paste in where it was highlighting. So it's highlighting this. We just replace where that was holding with the formula. Still works. I do it one at a time, so I check that it works. And I grab the same thing.
Just hypothetically,
Sure.
if down the road I happen to forget Control-Shift-3.
Yeah?
Where would you do that?
So there's your numbers. I'm just going to move these columns because we fixed it. Select what you got, and up here. Short date. Time, percentage. So here, short date. But Control-Shift-3. So now this is actually a date. OK, so we've gone through our data. We've cleaned it up. We've had some fun. Let's turn this to a pivot table. We go to Table Tools. Summarize the pivot table. So we want to go into a new worksheet. So this will automatically select our table. We did a little bit of a boo-boo, and we didn't name it, so it just gave it a default name. If we want to name it, which is useful, we go up here, table name. The naming nomenclature I use is I'll do TB _. You can literally call this whatever you like, but you always have to start with a letter. You can't start with 1, 1, 5, whatever. So I do TB because it's easy to remember. And then I'm just going to call this data. Or you can call it main data or whatever you like. I'm just calling it data. I already have one that's called data, so it didn't let me do that. So I'm going to just call this, let's say, main. So that's what this is called. Summarize with pivot. Now it's going to say, I'm using this table. I want a new worksheet. I recommend doing a new worksheet. If you insist on putting in the same one, you can, but put it in a new one. Is everyone here? I'm going to insert a new column here just so that I can actually see the edges of this pivot table. And if you just start clicking, it'll actually start filling in all the different things you need. This is great. So do you see what happened here? What happened?
One kept the space, it didn't
Exactly. So we actually have duplicate entries in here because there's probably a space. So if I go back to the original data here, and I filter, so even though it shows electricity, that is the text, somewhere in here I have, I'm just filtering by visible. Somewhere in here I have, there you go. So there, I just did Control Enter, replaced it all. If I go back to my, this one, sorry, label your sheet so you can find it, pivot. So it looks the same right now. That's because we have to refresh the data. So up here in the pivot table tools, go to Analyze, and then Refresh. If you just click Refresh, it'll refresh the one, but if you have multiple pivot tables, it'll refresh all of them. And now it's gone. So one of the things that's really, really cool about the tables is it maintains everything you have. If you paste in, it'll resize, and it'll update the records that it has in it. If you do that, and you click refresh on your pivot, it's going to bring in all that new data every time. And so once you've formatted this thing, it'll keep its format and structure, and it'll allow you to add data to your table without affecting your pivot, and then you can refresh it, and all your numbers will aggregate and change as you need to. So the way you think about this is the structure is you keep it, rows are what's, obviously these are rows, they're going to stack on top, and then columns are what's going horizontal. I want to see electricity, natural gas, water across the top. So if I grab the commodity and I go to columns, that's what's going to happen. Now because we created that column with the proper dates, we didn't name it properly, but this, right? So I'm going to actually rename that Control R, and then I'm going to call that Calc. If you do this, the pivot table is not going to immediately recognize that you've updated this. So right now you see it says column 1. When I refresh it, column 1 is going to disappear, and it's going to be billing period calc. And as you can see, it's grouping them together because they're side by side. So if I put this date down, now I've got all the dates. If I tried doing that with this, it would show, but they're just numbers. You can't do anything with this. And one of the best things about pivots is you can actually group the information. So if I unclick that, drag back this down, if you right-click, go group, you can say years and months. Now it's grouped it by years and months. And you can have all the days in there, and then you can filter and organize all the information. Now if I want to be able to go, give me the total costs, right? Now it's giving me the total costs of electricity, gas, water per month. You can highlight and say, just show me these, filter, keep only selected items, and what it'll do is it'll filter just these months that you've highlighted across all of the different records you've got. I'm going to do clear filters. So our handy dandy pivot tables come back with slicers. So what we want to see is we want to slice by the building, by the commodity type, and then in this case, because we did a grouping of the dates, it actually added a new row down here that didn't exist previously because we grouped it, and so it has to be somewhere. So look, you have to actually look for it in some cases. And we'll have to put this guy in here too. So now we've got all these beautiful slicers that show us the pieces of information. But what happens is when we slice this, it actually will filter the entire pivot to whatever you want. So if I just want to see this one fire station or whatever, one at a time, it's going to update these accordingly, right? If I just want to see 2013, I can see 2013 or 2015 or 2013 and 2014. Or electricity or gas. You can filter, you can see all the commodities. Now the reason why you can see all these commodities is because of the structure of how this table was entered in. Each and every single piece of data point had its own row. You didn't have a fire hall like this, FS313, and then it said electricity as another column, natural gas, and then another column, water. It actually stacked them. So for every bill, there was a new row, and the utility was labeled here, right? So you have to be aware of that when you're pivoting your information. If it's not structured properly, you actually have to put that structure in place. Does everyone know what I'm talking about when I'm saying about having these in line? Sort of? Just a quick example. So FS311, and then we'd have like electricity, gas, water, right? And then, well, maybe, so this will be right again and kilowatts. So just point being is that you have the different metrics, right? And you might have different dates in here. Here's another trick you can do. When you're entering in dates, I like doing 2016, like year, month, day, right? You can right-click, drag down. Do you see how the numbers are updating? And then you can do fill series. And you can do by days, weeks, months. If I say months, every row is going to update by 1 day, 1 month. So if I started in December, the next one's going to be January, and then, you know. And if I want to do by days, because I want to do December 1st, December 2nd, 3rd, you can do that. So now I've quickly filled that in. So the thing is if your data is structured like this, so this is, you know, you got a cost and you've got your consumption, right? And then the same thing here. I'm just putting in numbers. You can't actually pivot this properly. It won't, like, you can do it, but you can't have it in this nicely stacked, organized way where you have all your commodities like this. You would actually end up having to drag them in one at a time. So just being aware of that, just basically every bill in this example has to have its own row. And you just give the metadata, as we were talking about. So this one happens to be electricity, because that's what this entire bill is. It's an electricity bill. But down here, unless I filter this, I filtered it. Right? So just make sure that every piece of information in the case of bills has its own row, and then you just, you know, say it's for this building and it's for this month, and just having it separated like that lets you pivot it properly. So doing this wouldn't work. So if this was the case, because I'm sure the question is, well, what do you do in this instance? You would actually have to break this out. So this is one row, right? This would be considered one entry. But in order to make this so that it's easy to pivot, we'd actually have to go like this, go copy cells, and then we'd have to grab this, put it over here, and the water, and put it over here. So we duplicated the months. And then we'd actually have to say this is electricity, this is gas, and then this is water. Does that make sense? Yeah. And then you say that this is cost now, and then this is usage, right? And so now you've got it. This would be utility. And this is date. And then you can pivot this. Oh, and then building, obviously. If you don't have it structured like this, you won't have the same kind of flexibility. Anyway, so doing this, you're able to group. As you saw, I can actually minimize these, and it'll show you totals, right? If you had individual days in there, you can look at the individual days, look at by month, look by year. And one of the things you can do, too, is you can actually stick the years over here and now look at it horizontally and go, here's 2013's gas, here's 2014's gas, right? So what ends up happening is once you start, you know, formatting things, you can, like this is showing, I didn't put any years or months. I just put the building and then the utilities, and this is just showing grand total across everything. So quickly I can have those show an update. But one of the things you can do too is you can graph it. And so with this, I can actually pick which building I want to look at and which commodity, and it's showing me all of the information in one shot, right? It's not useful to show all three because the numbers aren't relatable, but this way you can quickly see the trend. This is a great way to detect errors. That's a problem. What happened here? I happen to know that in that instance, which we can probably detect here. So if I go back to that summary, this is for FS311. It's electricity. So if I go back to here, I can filter by kilowatts, or you can do electricity. It's the same thing. I can go, I also know that it's in 2012, so that's additional information I have. So I can go into here, do 2012, and then if I were to do a heat map or conditional formatting down here, and there we are. That would be the bad boy. And what happened? Look at the days. There's way too many days in here. So you actually would have to normalize this data or break it up in order for it to be able to be in your data set, because if you look at what the average number of days is in here, and that's something else down here. So if you right click, do you see how it says average, count, sum? If you right click down here, just on this green bar, you can actually put max and min and count so that you can quickly see all these different values. So I can highlight this and go, what's my average? 39. And you can actually alternatively go down to the bottom here, click on the totals, which you can hide and show, by the way. So if I want to actually do entry, I can hide it, do my entry stuff, like adding in new rows of stuff, and then bring it back, and all the formulas keep. So in here, I can go, what's my average? And there you go. So if I wanted to clean this up, I'd actually probably have to remove it. Or in this case, you wouldn't remove it, you would actually filter it out, which we could do by doing a slicer again, and then grabbing years. And then if I, this is the simple way. Now what happened was, this is not updating. And so what you have to do is go slicers, slicer settings, report controls. So what this does is slicers can be, you could actually, in pivots, as long as the data, the pivot table is coming from is the same. So we made the pivot table from an existing table, which we call table main. If I had another table called table utilities or table whatever, they're two different tables, that slicer can only work from one data set. So if you have multiple, it won't work. In this case, this is all from the same one. See how it says summary sheet? So I can do this. And now it's going to apply to that. So now I can just show that. There's other ways to remove it. So actually, you know what? Just because we're talking about it, see the spike? One of the tricks you can do, again, you don't delete the data, you can flag it. So you can just make a new column in here, and I just say use, question mark. And then what we could do is we can say the default is equal to, yes. It's going to fill all the way down. And then this one I'm just going to override. And you can color format this so that you know it's there, equal to, say no. Now, all I've done is I've added some metadata to flag it, and I can go back over here and do refresh all. And then you can either add a filter, or you can add a slicer. I prefer slicers because you can see them on the screen. Filters will pop up above and kind of get in the way. So do a slicer, and then do, what's the name of that one we just did? Yes, where is that? Is it on here? Should be. Oh, wait a minute. This is connected to another data set. If you need to, hold on. This is connected to the first data, I think. This one. Sorry. Yeah. So anyway, I know I got to wrap this up because I'm sure we're doing. Is there any more questions though? As far as what we covered today?
Would you ever, if you're sharing this Excel file, would you put a legend of your color coding for someone else so they know?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Sure. Definitely is a great idea. I mean, and just if you were doing a legend, it would just be as simple as, you'd say green, and then you could say this is electricity, right? And just put the colors, and just call it a legend. Oh, and there was a few other things I just wanted to show, if we have time. Sumifs. So if this has happened to me, if your pivots are not working, that can happen. Sometimes Excel doesn't want to play nice, and you still need to be able to shape your data and present it similar to this kind of structure, right? or this one, right? You want to be able to go, give me the total for January for this, electricity for this year, blah, blah, blah. You can do what's called a Sumif. It works like a count if. You go add this column up if it meets all these criteria, like based on other criteria. So for example, if I want it to be this building, right, and I want it to have electricity, so those are my two criteria, that it's going to be this building, this utility, okay? And then I'm going to say, give me back dollars, okay? So if I do sum ifs, we're going to sum the cost. So pick the column that you want to sum. The criteria range, well, we said the first criteria is the building, so we're going to from this column. That's the range we want to select from as a criteria. And then it says criteria 1. It has to be equal to this. And then criteria 2, we want it to be that it matches electricity. So we're going to pick this column. Criteria 2 is this. So now what this has done is this has added up all of the values, all of the cost, where it was this building and it was set to electricity. If I change this to water, it updates, because now it changes the parameters of what you're looking for, right? And if you wanted to put another parameter, let's say this date, make it nice and easy, Control-Alt-V, okay? We just go to the end here, add another criteria, and say this column, look inside this column, and this is your criteria. Now we got 996, which should match that. And the same thing if I change this to water or natural gas. There happens to be no entry for that date. So that's why I gave a 0, or that one either. So something to be aware of if it doesn't come up. So if I go electricity and I put in a new date. So what you can do potentially with this, if I insert, just to have an idea, if I copy these down, right? Be aware of when you drag. Do you notice how the numbers changed? So right-click and drag, go copy cells. And this, if I drag down, let's use the first one. If I drag down here, because we know these go down in months. Now if I drag this formula down, it should work. This is not working. This isn't working because the dates are going the other way around. There's no 2016. We actually have to go. So pay attention. Here, I'm just going to grab these. So you could build your own strings, right? And so it'll just bring that in. So without having to copy and paste the data, you can still extract it. And you can still do math with it without affecting the original one. Now, another handy keyboard shortcut, if you hit Alt and plus, it'll quickly sum things if you want to do that. Alt plus. That's the sound of satisfaction. Everyone going, what? That's what I want to hear. Alt plus. Yeah? Okay. Okay. Alt plus. All right. So here, so what I did now is that we can now convert this into our table. And so you can fix it. Like you could set it and set all your parameters, right? And still use that sumif function, right? And then you don't even have to do that alt plus. You just hit a total. Now it's complaining. So here, this is a good example I didn't get to show you. You can grab that whole table, move it, and everything comes with it. And so I can do total now, and it adds it up. One of the things I wanted to show, too, is if I say equals this, that's the number, right? If I grab this table and I take it somewhere else, either another page or something else, this number doesn't get affected. Tables are stored inside of Excel's memory and kept there. So if I cut and paste this, make a new page again, and I put it there, and I go back to wherever that was, where did that go? This number is still good. But now it's saying it's on table 9. Table 9, well, no, that's where it was before. So this is the new sheet, right? This is new, right? That was the number. Even though I moved this, it's still connected to it. Like it's still pulling that reference. So the benefit of that is that you can move your tables around and it doesn't affect your links. Yeah. So, is there anything else? The other one that I can show, which is not as quick, but may as well, if you guys are still hanging in there. This is the last of the tricks I got in my pocket for now, is the index match. One of the things that you can do is you can look up the same, just like a Sumif, but it's not doing math. It lets you actually pull up text. So if I wanted to grab natural gas out of this table, I can actually write a formula to do that based on some parameters. So index, first you select what it is you want to index, which is the whole table. This is like the VLOOKUP, HLOOKUP. And then you basically provided a row and a column. So what row is natural gas? 2? And what column is, if you think it like this is column 1, this is column 2. Row 1, row 2, row 3. So what column is natural gas? Okay.
How does it know you're referencing that table?
The very first thing you enter in is the reference. Index, and then I can select the table. Now here's one of the things. Do you see how it's called table utilities? Because I went into here and I actually named it. This is where naming your tables is useful. If I go equals index, and using that naming nomenclature, TB underscore utilities. So then the next part of this equation is what's called match. Match lets you look up in a column and returns you the location number if it finds a match. So I'm going to say, in order to, here, I want to find natural gas. So we don't actually know where this is, but I want it to tell me where it is. So I go index, TB, utilities, match. Now, this is what I'm looking for. So I can either do that, or I can type it in. That little shortcut I just showed you is F9. So if you have a link and you want to see what the result of that is, if you highlight whatever you're linking to and press F9, it'll show you what that is. So you can use that for troubleshooting too. So in this formula, I'm just going to open this up, match. I can either type natural gas, or I can link to it. So I'm looking for natural gas in this column. Now if you look at the string that it's popping up, it's saying TB utilities, which is this table as we know, and then it's putting the name of the column. You can actually hand code that. So match, I'm going to say this, which is natural gas, and then I can go TB utilities. I press the square bracket, and it shows me the 2 columns in that table. And it'll do this for all the other ones, and then square bracket. So now, as you see, it highlighted this whole thing. And then it asks what type of match you want, and you want an exact match, so you put 0. So that alone will give me back, I'm just going to close this for a second. It's not going to give me anything right now, but if I take this formula, do that same thing, hit F9, it gives me number 2. It's returning the position, number 2. If I actually were to move this, it's going to let me move this? No, it's not going to let me move it. So if I were to put natural gas down here, and I did, yeah. grab this guy and press F9, it's going to give me a 4 because it sees it's down here, right? So if I copy and paste it here again, or even here, and you can't have duplicates. If you have duplicates, it won't work. So it's looking up natural gas right here, or here. Find me natural gas inside that column. So what number should this return if you're looking inside this column? Oh, wait. No, that was correct. That was correct. 3. Okay. So with that concept, using match, you can use a formula to create the row and the column. So doing that, now I can finish this. So the next part is I want to find the column, right? Do you see it says column? Match. And then I can actually click on the column I want it to find. So find me this name, and then I can say in this row. And it'll do the same thing. So now this is column 1, column 2. Sorry, this is column 1, this is column 2. I'm saying find me where it says commodity code. So I clicked on it, but if I highlight this and I press F9, you'll see it's the same thing. It's actually referencing commodity code. So I can leave it like that if I wanted. And then I'm saying find it in the headers, and I go, OK. Now it gives me natural gas. So in the reverse position, if I knew natural gas, if I knew I wanted to go to natural gas, which happens to be in row 3 here, and I just put the number 3, oops. I could actually do the same thing. I'm going to go index, this table. So what I'm doing is I want it to look up this number in this column and spit back the text. I want to find this number in this column, but then return me the information from this. So I say match. I say this number in this column. And then I want it to bring me back. This is the column I want to return, which is number 2, so it'll give me this value. There's an extra bracket, so there you go. Now, if I were to type the number 1, what is it going to give me?
Electricity.
You got it. Number 2? Yeah. So that's an error, but if I said hydro. Yeah. So now you can imagine doing this kind of thing. If I were to do it inside a table, I can actually have it dynamically updating the value. So that's what I did in here. I actually wrote this formula. I said look up in this table, match where you see number 1 in the first record, which is over here. And so that gives me the row. So wherever you see the number 1 in this, give me that position. And then in the columns, this is the column I'm looking for, and give me back that name. So just by putting that formula in, I can actually now update this to 2, 3, 1, and so I can dynamically, quickly fill it in. And the huge benefit of that is that when you're using this kind of functionality, maybe someone asks you, your boss asks you, well, I don't want to say electricity, I want to say ELEC. So you can just go back because you have them linked, type ELEC, and now it'll update dynamically all your stuff. And you have to use this index or VLOOKUP when you're dealing with text. When you're dealing with numbers, you have to use Sumifs. Sumifs will do math. Index will just bring you back values. And I'm going to call that a wrap.